Hey guys, this is Lucas from Better Coding Academy, and in this video we are going to be taking the classifieds app that we previously built, and I'm going to be showing you how to deploy it onto AWS using Terraform. Now this video and the whole process definitely is quite time consuming, and I'll be covering a lot of stuff, so just keep in mind that this is not a full-blown tutorial explaining every single step in complete detail. I'll be skimming over quite a few things for the sake of brevity, but I'll be mentioning what I'm doing and what exactly each section does. So hopefully that should help with being able to do your own research and to see things for yourself as well. So now we have this app over here. I'm not sure if you remember. I'm just going to demonstrate it real quick again. So I've got a sign in on the right, so testexample.com for example, and a password of password. I can sign up, and then I can sign in, so test@example.com and password, and that will log me in. And then I can add in a title, for example, let's just say a bowl of fish, also known as a fish bowl or something. I'm pretty creative. So anyways, let's click add listing, and now it appears up here. So that's basically the app, but right now it's working locally. If you remember, and I'll run through this really quickly, is we're using Docker Compose at the moment to kind of create a local infrastructure for our microservices. But what we're going to do now is deploy this whole thing onto AWS. Now this is the diagram that we're going to be setting up using Terraform. So firstly, Terraform is this thing made by HashiCorp. So HashiCorp Terraform. And a Terraform, basically, it is this principle called infrastructure as code. So this name here, infrastructure as code, basically refers to you write code which then Terraform uses to create stuff inside of, say, AWS, for example. It actually supports a whole bunch of cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So it's actually really, really nice. Using Terraform has been quite enjoyable, so I definitely recommend you check this out. But in any case, I'll be showing you how to set all of this up in this video. So anyways, we're going to be using Terraform to set up this thing you see on the screen right now, or I guess something like this. This isn't an exact AWS diagram, and it's not meant to be perfect to represent every single component and how it works exactly, but it's just meant to give you an idea of what we're trying to do here. Now you'll notice that we have a public subnet and a private subnet. So basically the idea here is that like the private stuff doesn't get accessed from the outside, unlike our local stuff, which can actually or technically be accessed. So for example, localhost 7001, and we can actually just go to localhost 7100 as well, like / say users, or is it listings? Yeah, and then you can get the listings there. So this is essentially what we have locally, but when we actually deploy this into a production environment or onto AWS, we don't want this to be the case. So actually when we deploy it using the private subnet, it basically means that we can't access it publicly, so we have to access it through the API gateway, as you can see here. So that's what we're going to be building out. Now let's begin. So this will be quite a lengthy process, and there's going to be quite a lot involved. But I think the first thing which we should do is inside of API gateway here, for listing service and users service, the URI here is hard coded. So this one, let's actually rename to URI. So just for consistency's sake here. And these two are hard coded, which is not good because obviously we're trying to deploy onto AWS. So what we're going to do is go into Docker Compose here, and we are going to, for the API gateway, add in an environment, and I'm going to add in listing service URI and users service URI. So listings service URI is equal to, and what we currently have, so I'm going to copy that, paste it in here, and then users service URI is equal to, we grab this one here and we put it right there. Okay, so now we can save these two, just save this one file, and go here, we're going to add import access env from, and then we're going to do hash root / helpers access env. So that is this file here, which we've already created. So we can use this file here, just grab access env, paste that there, and then we can write listings service URI like that. And then I can grab this line, grab that line, go here, paste it there, and then replace this one with users service URI. So now we have both of these inside of here. And now what we need to do is go back into this terminal here, and obviously we're getting an error because we need to restart Docker Compose to get these two. So we just need to Control-C this real quick, and then just restart this one. Okay, great. Now everything is running, and if we go back into Chrome, you'll notice that it's still working just fine. So now that's it pretty much locally here as for our existing code in terms of what we're going to do. Now what we need to do is make sure we have Terraform installed. So I'm going to go through that installation process with you right now. So to click on download CLI, and you can just basically grab the one for macOS or whichever platform you're working on. I do recommend that you use Mac, or Linux probably will work as well. If you've been following along so far and you have been doing well with Windows, then this should probably also work. But I would definitely recommend macOS or Linux. Alternatively, you can use the WSL, so Windows subsystem for Linux. That also tends to work pretty well as well. But anyways, in order to download this, I actually don't want to use this file here because I found that this isn't the best way to do it. The easiest way is actually to just open up a new terminal window, say this one here, and just do brew install Terraform. If you are on Linux, this might not work. You might be able to do like sudo apt install Terraform or something like that. It really depends upon the operating system that you're using and the specific distro. But if you're on Mac, then you can just do brew install and it'll work just fine. So now we have Terraform installed. My one is 0.12.18. This is important to keep in mind, the exact dependencies, especially because Terraform actually changed quite a fair bit from 0.11 to 0.12. So 0.12 had a lot of things be updated and they kind of work differently. So I do recommend that you either use version 12, or if you are using version 13 and so on in the future, then make sure that you update the code so that it works properly with your version of Terraform. So just make sure that it's installed. We can do Terraform version and we get 0.12.18. So there you go. It's installed just fine. So now we can probably close this one. And what we're going to do is inside of our microservices demo, we're going to create a directory called Terraform. So this is going to store all of our stuff relating to Terraform. But before we actually add too much into here, let's first make sure that we have an AWS account. So you can just go to aws.amazon.com. It's probably the easiest way. And then from here, we can click create a free account. So you just need to create an account here and you'll get a lot of stuff inside of the free tier. So by using the free tier, we can actually do all of the experimentation and the stuff I show in this video for free. However, just keep in mind that if you keep all of the resources online, then you will eventually get charged money and you might get charged sooner than you might think. So just be careful with this kind of stuff. But anyways, let's just start now. So I'm going to put in my email address. Okay, and I'm going to use this for my password. So I just pasted in a password there. And then you can pick something for your account name. And I'm going to just use, let's just say Better Coding Academy. And I will just call this one maybe MS Demo or something like that. So for microservices. And I'm going to click continue. And just fill in your personal details here. And you just need to make sure also that you verify your ID. So probably just ask you for your phone number and just type that in and get it verified. Click continue. And then we're going to click the basic plan. And now we should be good to go. So now it's telling you that it's activating your account. So then once this is complete, you can just click on sign in to the console and you can sign in from there. So now I'm going to type in the email address here. And I'm going to type in the password and just click sign in. Okay, great. So now this should be the page that you go on. So what I actually suggest we do is first and foremost, go up here to the right. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. And then over here, instead of Ohio, I'm going to choose Asia Pacific, Sydney. So I prefer to use Sydney because it's closer to where I am geographically. So then by using the Sydney servers, you get a faster response time. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you choose. You can choose one that's closer to where you currently are. That's probably what I'd suggest. But anyways, just choose that here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click on services, and you'll notice that Amazon has a crazy number of services. But the one that we're going to look at is one called IAM. So IAM stands for Identity, Access, and Management, I think, or something like that. Anyways, we're going to click on that one. Yep, Identity and Access Management. And what we're going to do is go over here into Users, and we're going to create a new user. So this user we're going to call Terraform. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it Terraform and give it programmatic access. Go next to permissions, and we're going to go attach existing policies directly, and we're going to give this one administrator access. So what you need to do is you need to give Terraform admin access to your AWS account, because then what you can do is it can actually create all of the resources for you. For example, it can create EC2 servers, it can create RDS databases, all that kind of stuff Terraform can get set up for you. So that's why we check this one. We click next to tags. You don't need to add anything here. Click next review. This should be fine. And then click create user. So now once you've done that, you'll notice that we have an access key ID and we also have a secret access key. So now we're going to go back into VS Code here, and I'm going to grab both of those and just put them in a file here. So this is the access key ID, and this one here is the secret access key. You can just leave those two there. You don't need to save it for the time being. We're going to keep those two, and then you can just close this page. So you don't need to worry about that page. Now we have a Terraform user. Make sure you save the secret access key, because you actually can't get another copy of it from the AWS website. You'd have to recreate a new new user. So anyways, now let's keep these two here and let's go into the Terraform directory and start adding in some stuff for Terraform. Okay, so now what we're going to do is inside of Terraform here, we're actually going to create two files to start off with. So first file here we're going to create is one called variables.tf. So variables.tf, this file here specifically, you can call it whatever you want, but in Terraform, you can have multiple files and they all kind of can have different names, but the names don't really matter. So it's really up to you to name them properly. So in this case here, I'm calling this one variables, and variables are basically things that you pass into Terraform. So in the case of the variables here, I'm going to do variable, first one is AWS access key. So this is going to be the key. So in other words, the first one here, type is going to be string. And I'm actually not going to specify it here. I'm going to show you why in just a second. So now for the second one here, we're going to do variable AWS secret key. And once again, I'm going to do type is a string, but I'm not going to specify what it is. So I'm going to keep those two and then do one more for the region. So the AWS region, like I mentioned before, we're also going to keep it here, but I'm not going to specify it. So we're going to leave these three inside of here. And now we're going to create another file. This one is going to be a new file. And the name of this one is actually important. We're going to call it terraform.tf vars. Now this file, so basically you can have any file which has a .tf vars extension, and you basically can allow Terraform to run with that file. And this tf vars file should contain these variables here. But when you call it terraform.tf vars, the benefit is that you don't have to specify the file specifically. It'll run it by default. So we can just create this file here, and I find that to be the easiest way. So now inside of this file, we're going to do AWS access key, and we're going to grab in this bit here. So that is the access key, and then AWS secret key. Now note how these two names are matched here. So AWS secret key and AWS secret key here. So we got to make sure those match. Grab this one and put that inside of there. And I don't think that backtick is part of it. So I'm going to actually get rid of that because I'm pretty sure that there is no backtick. So now we have these two. We're also going to specify the AWS region. Now what we actually use for the region name, well, we can find that here. So if we go over, say back to the original console, and you'll notice that top left hand corner here, it says here as well. But if you click on Sydney, it says AP Southeast 2. So that's the one I'm going to be using here. So obviously, like I said, if you live in a different part of the world, you can use that one there. It really shouldn't make too much of a difference for this project. So now we have these three specified and we have our variables here. So now let's start creating our resources, which we're going to put into, which we're going to use for Terraform. But the first thing that is worth noting is that this file here, terraform.tf vars, should not be committed into GitHub. So if you actually check out the GitHub repository that I have for this project at the moment, I have all of the Terraform files inside of there, but I don't have a file called terraform.tf vars. I actually have a file called terraform.example.tf vars. And this file here actually gets committed, but this one is left blank, this one is left blank, and this one is left blank. So it kind of gives you an idea of what needs to be specified without actually specifying it. So the benefit here is that you can put some like confidential information inside of here, and you don't want to commit this into GitHub. So that's why we keep this here and we have an example file. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to leave out the example file so you can kind of figure that out at your own pace. So now we have this one here, which just as I said, should not be committed to GitHub. So make sure you ignore that inside of git ignore. And now we're going to start working on putting together our Node.js servers. So we have 3 Node.js servers, one for the API gateway, one for listing service, and one for users service. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover a Terraform concept called a module. So we're going to create a module inside of a directory here called node server. So now inside of node server here, let's create a new file, and I'm going to call this one variables.tf again. So this one here, and we can close this file now because we already have that. So this file variables.tf basically specifies the stuff that gets passed into this module. So you can think of a module as kind of like a function as well, in that it accepts certain arguments, and that is what we're providing here. So we're specifying the arguments that we can provide. Now these are the ones we're going to use. We're going to use variable number 1 is going to be AMI ID, type equals string. So what this one's going to be used for is AMI stands for Amazon Machine Image. So when you create an EC2 container, which is what we're going to do, the EC2 container will be based off of a particular image. So Amazon provides a whole bunch of images by default, and the one we're going to use is called Amazon Linux 2. Or Amazon 2 Linux, I think, something like that. And that's the one we're going to be using, but we don't want to specify that inside of node server specifically. You might argue that it could be a good idea to include it here, but this is what I've chosen to do, and you can kind of change that later on. So now the other one we're going to do is variable, and we're going to call this one IAM instance profile. So this one here specifically relates to identity and access management. So inside of Amazon, the concept is that there's going to be certain permissions which can be given to each resource. So for example, the EC2 containers have certain permissions to access certain things. The database has certain permissions to access certain things, and so on and so forth. So we're going to leave this one as default being empty, but we're going to specify this one here as well. Now, if you want more information on this, you can find more info on the AWS docs. So for example, their documentation for EC2. Alternatively, you can also find this kind of stuff as I keep going on. You can find the stuff on the Terraform documentation, and I'm going to show you where to find that as well. So now we have these two here. Let's also add in instance type. So this one's going to be type equals string, but we're also going to add default being t2.micro. So this is the default value. Now, why do we use t2.micro? Because this is the one that's given by Amazon for free during the first 12 months. So that's the one we're going to be using here. And then variable is going to be name. So this is the name of it, and type equals string. Variable key pair, and I'll show you what this does in just a second. And also variable, call this one key pair key. And also type equals string. Variable private IP, so this is the private IP address for the container, and you'll see how this comes in handy later on as well. Default is empty, type is also string, and then variable subnet ID, and this one's going to be type equals string as well. And then variable VPC security group IDs. And once again, I'm going to showcase how this is useful. And it's going to be a list of strings, but the default is going to be an empty array. So basically, now we have all of these variables here, but they don't actually do anything yet. So we have all of this specified. Now we're going to right click a new file inside of Node server, call this one main.tf. Like I said, the names really don't matter, but I'm going to show you what I believe to be a good naming convention here. So I've got main.tf here, and inside of this file, we're going to add in a resource. So resources are basically things that you can create inside of Terraform. So for example, we can create AWS instance, which refers to an EC2 instance, and this one's going to be called default. So default is just an internal name for the resource here. It's not actually a name which gets applied at some sort of AWS level. It's just used internally inside of Terraform. So now we have this one here. We're going to do AMI equals var.AMI-ID. You see the var comes in from variables here. So like I said, the file names really don't matter. All of the files get kind of run together inside of this directory. So var.AMI-ID, it figures out that it comes from here. And then we do IAM instance profile. And make sure you get the casing right. So we use kebab casing here for the variable names, but Terraform uses underscores by default. So that's why we're doing this here. Instance type is equal to var.instance type like that. Key name is going to be var.keypair. Private IP equals var.private IP like that. Subnet ID equals var.subnet ID. And then VPC security group IDs equals var.VPC security group IDs. So now we're actually going to go down here and do tags. Tags equals, and we're going to do name equals var.name. So this name here is just a string, and tags are basically information which helps you to identify a particular resource. It's meant to be human readable. So this name here is meant to be used to identify it by a human. So this is something which comes in handy. So now we have main.tf, and we also have variables.tf set up. Now that we have these two here, let's actually, before we continue adding more stuff, let's actually try setting up a Node.js server and just get one running inside of EC2, and then we'll go on from there. So let's go into Terraform here, create a new file, and I'm going to maybe call this one, say, test server.tf. And now inside of here, we're going to create something called a module. So module, let's just call ours test server. Like I said, this is an internal name. The source is going to be from Node server. So now we're using this module here, and let's specify a few things. So first one, we're going to specify the AMI ID, and this is the Amazon Machine Image ID. And this is how you can find it. So we go into EC2 here, back inside of our AWS console. Let's click on instances, and let's click launch instance. So now that we've done that, we've got this one open up here, and you'll notice that we have a lot of different ones available. The one I'm going to be using for the sake of this tutorial is the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. So now notice that this one here has this particular ID. So we're going to copy that ID and we're going to paste it inside of there. So now this is our AMI ID, and then our IAM instance profile. We actually don't need to specify this at the moment. This will be used later on for code deploy. So we're going to leave that out. So this is specifically for deployment. The next thing here we should specify underneath instance type, because we already got that, we can specify the name. So let's do name is equal to, say, test server, for example, and let's actually put these in alphabetical order. So name goes underneath K, so K and P. Okay, so now on top of name here, let's do key pair. is equal to, and now we need to specify a key. So where are we going to find this key, and what exactly is the concept of a key here? So in order to access instances inside of EC2, what we have to do is we have to use something called a public and private key pair. So the best way to do that is to generate your own. Actually, in this case, that's really the only way to do that from Terraform. So what we're going to do is go back into, say, terminal here. And this terminal is running, currently running the whole thing locally. We can actually control C that, so we don't need to have the Docker Compose running at the moment because we're working with Terraform. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is just write SSH keygen -t RSA-b 4096. So this will generate a key. So now we generate a public and private key pair. It's asking us to save it here. Now you don't want to save it there. You actually want to save it inside of the Terraform directory. So I think if you do /terraform/ let's call this one microservices _demo. I think that should work. So if we press enter and then enter for no password. No password here is fine, as you'll see in a second. And we have two files here, one called microservices demo, which is our private key, and microservices demo.pub, which is our public key. So now for the naming convention, instead of calling this one pub, we're going to rename this file here to .pem. So this is one that we generally use for private keys. Pub is like Microsoft Publisher, so PEM I think is better, and this file here should be .key, which we use for private keys. So now just a reminder once again that if you are going to commit this into GitHub, you do not want to commit these two files. So make sure you don't commit this file here, and make sure you also don't commit these two, because these two are definitely files that you do not want to get involved inside of your Git history. So now we have these two files here. We're going to add in our key pair. So to do that, firstly, let's actually create another file inside of Terraform. So let's create this one, call it a keypairs.tf. And now inside of this file here, we're going to do resource AWS key pair. Call this one microservices demo key. The key name will be microservices demo key, and the public key will be file./microservicesdemo.pem. So this refers to that file there. So now basically we're using that file inside of an AWS key pair, and now inside of test server, we're going to uncomment this, and we're going to add in AWS key pair and then .microservices demo key. So notice this name here matches that name there, and then this name here, microservices demo key, matches that name there. So now we have that, and then we do .key name. So before I continue, I'd like to explain a little bit more about how this works exactly. So first thing to note is that this key pair comes from Node server. So Node server has variables, it has key pair. And now where is this key pair being used? Well, inside of main here, we're actually doing key name equals var.key pair. So basically it gets mapped to an AWS instance key name. So now if we actually go to the Terraform docs, go here, click on docs, click on Terraform CLI, and then if you click on providers over here, and then you scroll down a bit, click on AWS, you notice that we have all the AWS stuff here on the side. So the one we're actually looking for is under EC2 here, and then under resources, we click on AWS instance. So that's the one that we were working with just then. So now we just scroll down a bit and look for key name. So you see we got this one here. It's optional, and it's the key name of the key pair to use for the instance, which can be managed using the AWS key pair resource. So now notice that we're passing in var.key pair, which if we look backwards, this one actually matches to AWS key pair.microservices demo key name. So this one comes from AWS key pair. So now AWS key pair, we can click on this link here. Alternatively, you can find that under EC2 here as well. So just underneath AWS instance. The other way to do it, and I find this way to be really nice as well, is just type in the name in the URL bar. So AWS/r/key_pair. So basically remove this part from the front and just get that final bit and put it in the URL. So now anyways, in this one here, you notice that we have an argument reference, but we also have an attribute reference. So attribute reference says, in addition to all arguments above, the following attributes are exported. So we have key name and we have fingerprint. So the key name here is the one that is exported, and it's the one that we're using here. So the export is the key pair name, and this is the one that we use inside of EC2. So that's how this works, and that's why we specified that there. But the other one that we need to have is key pair key. So it turns out that this one's actually my bad in that we're not actually using the key pair key here at all. So maybe this was when I was doing some testing, messing around with it, but we don't need that anymore. We only need the key pair. So now you've got key pair inside of here, just delete the other one from variables, and now we have the key pair specified there. So let's go down here a bit more, private IP, and we also have subnet ID. Now for the subnet ID, what I'm actually gonna do is if we go back to here and just type in instance, so let's look at the docs, you notice that the subnet ID should be optional. So it's optional. If you don't specify the subnet ID, we're going to make this one able to be optional as well. It will actually give us the default subnet. So that's the one we're going to use now. So leave that one as double quotes. Then we don't need to specify that here. So now we have AMI ID, we have key pair, we have name, and we have the source inside of test server. So now that we have this one set up, if we go into our terminal, so our big terminal window over here, let's just clear this one real quick and go cd terraform. Now inside of this directory here, we're going to type in terraform init. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It's a bit bigger as well. There we go. And I press enter, then this will initialize Terraform for us. So this will download the plugin. It might take a little bit of time the first time around, but the next time you do it, it won't take as long.